Chapter 2: The Machines of Red Soil. Weightlessness embraced him like an old friend. Dr. Elias Mercer floated inside the ship's cabin, his straps now loosened, his body moving with the gentle push of fingertips against the bulkhead. Outside the viewport, Earth had shrunk to a jewel hanging in blackness, blue and white swirled together as though painted by a careless artist. For a moment, Elias allowed himself the luxury of awe. But only a moment, because this mission wasn't about the planet he left behind. It was about the machines traveling with him. He drifted toward the cargo bay, keying open the reinforced hatch. Inside, the chamber was dimly lit, the hum of life support systems echoing like distant machinery in a factory. There, strapped tightly into cradles of carbon fiber and steel, lay his companions. Closest to the hatch was Rover 7, a six-wheeled beast of matte black plating and polished silver joints. Unlike the clunky rovers of past decades, this one was compact, agile, its suspension capable of scaling jagged cliffs or descending into craters where no human foot or wheel had ever gone. Its head, a mast crowned with sensors, gave it the look of a creature always searching, always curious. Elias had designed it that way deliberately. Curiosity, after all, was the essence of science. Beside it rested Spindle, coiled like a steel serpent. It was a tunneling machine, slender and flexible, patterned with rings of reinforced alloy. Within its core was a drill tipped with diamond composite, built to chew through permafrost and stone in search of hidden reservoirs. Its belly held sensors capable of tasting the soil as it burrowed, analyzing in real time. To Elias, Spindle was the key to the past of Mars. If life had ever sheltered beneath the surface, this machine would be the one to find its remains. Suspended in a web of stabilizing cords floated Argus, a polished sphere the size of a medicine ball. Its surface shimmered with embedded lenses, each capable of swiveling like an unblinking eye. Unlike the others, Argus was not bound to wheels or drills, it was fitted with thrusters, capable of levitating and gliding silently across the Martian landscape. It was the eye in the sky, mapping terrain, measuring radiation, watching over Elias himself. Its name came from myth, the hundred-eyed giant who saw all. And there were others, smaller drones with wings that folded like origami, spider-like crawlers meant to squeeze into cracks and caves. But these three, Rover 7, Spindle, Argus, were his trinity, his finest work, the culmination of years that had bled into obsession. Elias floated closer, brushing his gloved hand along Rover 7's plating. The metal was cold to the touch, but in his mind, he imagined a heartbeat beneath it. He whispered, almost embarrassed by the habit. "Not much longer now. You'll all wake soon." The machines didn't respond, of course. Not yet. Their minds, if one could call the specialized algorithms and adaptive codes minds, were dormant, sleeping in carefully encrypted memory banks. But when they awoke, when they rolled out across alien dust, they would speak. They would analyze, they would decide, they would explore beside him. Elias had given them not only programming but quirks, subtle patterns of response, preferences in how they tackled problems, tones of voice he had coded himself during long, lonely nights. It was, he admitted privately, less for science and more for survival. Mars was vast, silent, and dangerous. Without these touches of humanity, loneliness might consume him before the mission even began. He pushed away from Rover 7 and drifted back toward the bay hatch, pausing to look over them one last time. The hum of the ship filled the silence, steady and comforting. The intercom crackled. "Dr. Mercer, telemetry check in 5 minutes. Please confirm robot bay status." He toggled his com. Bay is stable. All units secure. His eyes lingered on Spindle's metallic coils. "They're ready." When the channel clicked off, Elias found himself speaking aloud again, voice hushed in the cavernous bay. "You're more than ready. You're the ones who'll find the truth." In his chest, excitement warred with fear. For the first time in his career, the instruments weren't just tools, they were partners. Together, they would pierce the surface of Mars, uncover its hidden chambers, taste its frozen waters, and if fortune favored them, find evidence that life had either survived or once thrived there. Elias pressed his hand to the cold bulkhead, steadying himself as the ship continued its silent voyage. The machine slept, Earth receded into darkness, and Mars loomed ahead, a desert world waiting to be woken. Chapter 3: Crimson Arrival. 6 months later, the silence of space broke. Dr. Elias Mercer sat strapped into his seat as alarms flickered and the ship trembled violently. The Martian atmosphere had seized them like a beast, clutching the hull in fiery hands. Outside the viewport, the thin air ignited into plasma, turning the glass into a sheet of orange flame. The ship howled, rattling as if it might tear apart at the seams. Elias's teeth clenched against the force pressing him into the seat. 4, then 5 gs of punishing descent. Heat shields holding, came Mission Control's distant voice through the static-laced comm. The words were calm, clinical. But Elias could hear the strain hidden beneath them. Once the craft passed beyond this inferno, there would be silence again, for minutes that would stretch like hours, when no signal could reach Earth. He gripped the armrests, sweat beading at his temples. It wasn't fear of death that gripped him. It was the knowledge that failure here would bury his machines, his work, his life's obsession, under a blanket of Martian dust before they ever tasted freedom. The roar outside shifted suddenly. Less fire, more scream of tearing air. The parachutes had deployed, vast synthetic canopies blossoming in the thin sky. The ship jerked hard, his body whipping against the restraints. The plasma glow faded into pale pink light. Mars was visible at last. It was beautiful. Terrifying. The horizon stretched endless and red, like a sea of rust frozen in time. Jagged mountains loomed to the west, their shadows long under the cold sunlight. Vast plains sprawled beneath him, pockmarked by craters and carved by the ghosts of rivers long vanished. A dust storm brewed in the far distance, a swirling ochre cloud that twisted itself toward the heavens. Final descent initiated, the ship's onboard computer intoned. Retro rockets fired. The cabin rattled again, softer this time, as the vessel slowed. Then, with a final shudder that seemed to echo through Elias's bones, the ship settled. The weight of the world shifted. Silence fell. Mars had them now. For a long moment, Elias didn't move. He sat listening to the faint ping of cooling metal, the hiss of settling hydraulics. Then he exhaled, a ragged sound that filled the small cabin. Touchdown confirmed, Mission Control's voice crackled faintly before vanishing into static. The blackout window had begun. From here on, until orbit aligned again, he was truly alone. Unstrapping, Elias floated down the narrow corridor toward the cargo bay. His hands trembled, though whether from adrenaline or awe, he couldn't tell. Through the viewport above the hatch, he glimpsed it again, the red desert, waiting in silence. The hatch hissed open, and he drifted into the bay. His eyes fell instantly on his machines. Still strapped in, still silent, they seemed to sense the change in gravity, as though eager to stretch their limbs. "Wake up," he whispered, fingers brushing the activation panel. One by one, the machine stirred. Rover 7 sensors flickered to life, its mass swiveling like a curious head. Spindle uncoiled slightly, its rings flexing as if testing for the taste of alien soil. Argus lit with a soft pulse of blue, its lenses dilating, thrusters humming faintly in readiness. Elias felt his throat tighten. They weren't alive, not truly, but at that moment, he could almost believe they were waking with him, sharing in the wonder of the world outside. He pressed the comm switch. "This is Dr. Mercer. Deployment sequence initiated." The cargo doors unsealed with a hiss, lowering the ramp. A gust of thin, icy air swept into the bay, carrying with it the sharp tang of dust and stone. The Martian wind whispered across the threshold, the first breath of a new world. Rover 7 rolled forward, treads crunching into the ochre dust. Spindle slithered behind, leaving faint tracks like a metallic snake. Argus floated silently, drifting beyond the ramp, its sensors flashing as it painted the landscape in ghostly overlays. Elias followed last. His boots touched the red soil with a muted thud. For a moment, all he could do was stand there, the horizon stretching forever, the wind whispering around his suit, the sky a pale salmon color unlike any on Earth. He knelt and let a handful of dust slip through his gloved fingers. Mars. A world once thought dead, now stirring beneath his touch. He looked at the machines spreading out before him, sensors scanning, lights blinking, their movements sharp and purposeful. Together, they had crossed the void. Together, they would search for answers. The silence pressed in, vast and ancient. For the first time, Elias felt it not as emptiness, but as a presence, as if the planet itself were watching and waiting.